explain this is from Japan, Miyagi Prefecture. You can buy, I think, in the supermarket nowadays, you could buy frozen Norway. It's also very, very fatty, oily as well. It's just the texture would be different because they were previously frozen. Or unless you get a hold of perhaps there are some places, Talos fish. They have sometimes they have fresh from Portugal, which is quite actually similar to the Japanese one, but rather a little less oily. So why do I always emphasize on how oily the fish is? Because I find it's either oil or moisture. Right? The more moisture, the less taste it gets because it sort of dilutes it. Mm-hmm. But fatty, it carries the flavor. It carries, especially mackerel, it carries a lot of DHA, good for your brain, omega-3. This is the very common things that you hear from getting from a fish. So now, in a whole fish, this is a gutted fish. If it's not gutted, just simply, this is technical term, anus. Just cut it open, and wash it, and possibly in salt water as well. So I'm just going to cut the collar out. This one, if you want, you can sort of soak in hot salt water, half dry it, cut it open, butterfly, half dry it, and grill. You could keep it in the freezer until the summer. So what I do this right now, it's called sanmai oroshi in Japanese term. So basically, you cut the fish into 3 pieces. So 2 fillets and 1 bone. So starting from the belly facing you, 1 cut, and then the back. So it's better to cut the skin first, and then sort of dig inside to this almost like the center bone, and just slightly, you can hear clicking the bone. And you as well. So 1, 2, and 3. So sanmai oroshi. Belly, the bone, just very slightly run through. Use the length of the knife if you could. Use the length of your knife, so you're not really squeezing or pushing or pressing. Normally, like I said, I would just salt it like this, whole piece of fish. But this would take 2 hours because the salt will slowly penetrate into the fish because it's rather a very thick cut of meat. But today, it's a rather shorter demonstration. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the bone first using a Japanese tweezer. And some people might ask, why do you have to salt the fish? So no matter how oily the fish, without preparation also means salted or vinegar or these type of preparation. Without doing that, there's still excess moistures, and with that excess moisture, the taste it's not delicate like what Jason was saying, elegant, delicate. And with mackerel, what you could do to take the skin, it's you can hold it here, kind of sort of use your nail to get a little bit of the skin. So just run through your nail. Yeah, when it's oily, it's also a little fragile as well. So that's why if you salt it first and then take excess moisture, it becomes firmer, so it doesn't break. So always press the skin and then pull. So in this way, it's nice and and this one, it's usually it's rather tougher meat. So also you could leave it with the head, salt water, and then half dry. You can put in the freezer for barbecue. Sprinkle some salt at the bottom as well, or if you put it in a bowl and just mix it, toss it. But in that way, again, you probably lose the texture because it might break. Because I cut it in strips, so you probably don't need as much. And when I do it, I usually bring it a little closer to me and raise my hand up and just sprinkle it. So in this way, your left hand is really controlling. My right hand is really just sprinkling.
Do you have a preference on your sea salt source?
I actually do prefer sea salt. If it's for marinating, I'm not too picky. But if it's for eating as it is, I usually use sea salt from Japan that's extracted from the seaweed. So it's rather a little brown. This one I would sit here about let's say 10 minutes.
Jackie,
Yes.
does the timing of marinating determines the amount of salt you use? So the shorter it is, you use more salt? Or?
It's I think it should be a fine balance though, because it also depends on how thick of the fish that you got.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it's even oilier than this. Then we do it a whole fillet. Then we do 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours. And even sea salt, sometimes it's not salty enough.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mix sea salt. Sea salt's got the taste, and the other normal table salt, and you got the saltiness. So I usually mix them too, and we do it 4 or 5 hours.
Is this the same process as like gravlax or smoked salmon, right? Curing.
Yeah.
This in European cooking, when you're curing, you do the whole side, not the slices. I mean, you're doing the slices because we want to eat it now.
Yes.
But a whole side of salmon usually is about 24 hours.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's interesting to see the different preparations of this too, because in the way I cook, this sugar or salt, I would add sugar to as well. And where the Japanese cuisine is all about the fish, like you do this and that's it. This is how you're gonna eat it. I would take like the ingredients that we have going on here. I would put some of that ingredients into the salt and cure the fish with that. So the fish would become perfumed with the basil and the coriander and the mint and all those things on its own. So it's just two different ways of doing it, right?
Well, I think the Japanese philosophy is really to bring it just minimum, right? The pure taste of the ingredients itself. So that's why always just salt and vinegar. Vinegar, I believe, is because partially you cook the fish a little bit, and then second, it's
To balance the fattiness.
to balance the fattiness. You don't get too overwhelmed, and then also you get a lot of aftertaste. After sour, it's sweet. After bitter, it's also sweet. So it's a fine balance. So the oilier, the more you have to do. After the 4 to 5 hour of salt, is I throw it in an ice bath of vinegar. Wash it, because I wash the salt away first, and then I throw it in the bath with vinegar, and then I soak it in the ice cold vinegar. So in that way, you don't ruin the new vinegar because you wash it in vinegar already. And then I would soak in that vinegar in the fridge. It has to be ice cold in that fridge for 3 to 4 hours at least. And then I would take it out and leave it overnight, because right away the vinegar won't penetrate because of how oily it is. So one night overnight, so it penetrates.
Okay, so I have our blanched, we made a little tomato salad. We have our blanched tomatoes. I've lightly dressed them with a little bit of olive oil and some salt. And then we've taken all little tastes of the property and the greenhouse into here. So we have, some of them have some bronze fennel, some of them have some dill, There's coriander, there's little tiny, those little strong tiny basil to reinforce. And again, it's about reinforcing what's here and bringing all the ingredients together. There's a little bit of citrus marigold on there, a tiny pickled shallot, and little intense purple flowers of mint. So really fresh flavors to go with this nice oily fish. Now, here we have our tomato water. Okay, look how beautiful that is. Nice. All right.
That's gonna be very
Elegant.
Isn't that neat?
Mm.
And this, so now what you could do, there's lots of, I mean, you can overthink this, like everything, right? You could then take this now, can you do a little squeeze again? Sure. Oh, there you go.
So gentle.
Yeah.
2 finger press.
It's like milking a cow, right? Oh, it tastes so good.
Leave some for us.
You put salt in it, right? Just now you.
Now we season.
Oh, now you season.
Now we season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a little bit of
Now
salt.
we
With recipes, you taste as you cook the whole time. For example, we're making a lamb sauce. We're roasting lamb scraps, we're roasting lamb bones, we're adding garlic and onion and celery, and all these things are happening in the pan. You taste it. Even if you're licking the bone, you taste it, and then you adjust. Bum, 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 bum. And then you do the next step, and you taste, and then you do the next step, and you taste, and you're constantly building it, and every step is as good as if you were going to serve it. A lot of people think with recipes, you read the instructions, and at the end you taste it and go, shitty. Right? You taste from the beginning.
Yeah.
This one, I don't taste from the beginning.
Yeah.
This is the only recipe where, because I know everything that's going into that blender or going on the cutting board or going into a mortar and pestle is at its peak and it's delicious, right? So now, once you've created that water, then you can play with it. But you have to be careful because you can play too much and you lose the essence of what's here. And right now, all I taste is tomato, I taste the garden, right? So we're gonna add a little bit of salt. Right? I like to add to this sometimes a touch of vinegar, depending on how sweet it is. It's pretty acidic. So I don't think we really need to add anything, to be honest. A little bit of salt, and that's it. I'm thinking.
So sometimes you might over salt this. You might put it in the fridge and forgot about it, because that's what I did a lot of times back in the days. It's okay. So put it back in the water and just adjust it as you go. So don't worry. Practice makes perfect. Although you can never practice too perfect. But
This is a little trick. You have a little dish, if you're having a dinner party, and you're doing a soup or you're doing sauces or something along those lines, you have that little dish to stop the dripping, so you don't get it all over the place.
normally, if I have a chance, I would wash this in vinegar, just to seal the salt. But
Look how pretty that is, eh?
yeah, if we do it in strips like this, the vinegar will actually ruin the color. So today is an exception.
This is the nicest mackerel I've ever tasted. And I love mackerel. I eat a lot of mackerel.